Welcome to AbilityMKE Now, live on River West Radio. My name is Sue Roskopf, and we're so glad to have everyone here joining us tonight. We have some amazing guests joining us, and it will be an exciting evening ahead. So with River West Radio, we are AbilityMKE Now. We are all about ability. We have you name it, we are talking about it. We integrate those that have ability, those that have a disability with those that have not claiming to have a disability, and we all are enjoying life here together in the Pewaukee area. Disability goes with a wide range of possibilities. We could be talking about a physical or mental disability, blindness, chronic pain, deafness and hard of hearing, substance use reduction, and the list goes on and on. However disability touches our lives, whether it is ourselves personally or with somebody that we know, it all touches us in some way, some fashion. And with that, we are here to bring more awareness and more thought to those that are experiencing things that we don't experience. So this is something that and those that have been on the show with us has been extremely eye-opening for me as well. And I am so excited to have a chance to learn more from our wonderful guests that we have this evening. So I'm going to start out by introducing a gentleman who is brand new to our show. So Mr. Nate Hallams is joining us for the first time tonight. And I'm wondering if I can go ahead and bring you in, if you could give us a little bit of background of who you are and what you're all about. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome, Nate.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Sue. Well, I am recently transplanted from California. I'm calling in from beautiful downtown Cincinnati, and it's great to be here in the heartland. We moved back here to help my in-laws, and it turned out to be timely to do that. But I have been unemployable, I guess, for the last 30 years as I've been an entrepreneur, and I've been focused on recently getting money into the hands of nonprofits, using some of the COVID relief dollars to do that. Nonprofits and places of worship, I feel like those are the places that can leverage the money the most. So that's where I'm concentrating.
Excellent. That's a huge need. That's amazing. I'm excited to learn more about what you all can do with that. Before we dive in deeper, though, I'm going to bring Mark back in here as well. So we had the pleasure of meeting Mark Mathis last week on the show, and I'm excited that he is back again. So Mark, I wonder if you can come on in and remind everybody who you are and what you're all about, and welcome again.
Thank you, Sue. Well, nice to meeting you for the first time, Nate, as well. I'm Mark from Montreal, Canada. So I'm out in the cold, and well, you guys have a little bit of cold there and snow. So here we got a lot of snow still as well. So I represent, well, I have a company called Reset It, and what I do is reset the things that you don't want in your life, and it's really that simple. And that's what I get to do.
I love that, because that is one of those things that really is that simple, but it's not that simple until you really think about it and make it that simple. Because we had a great conversation last week, and I'm like looking forward to hearing more from you about it all.
It depends on the movies that we're playing in our heads, really.
Simple, not easy, right?
Well, it depends the way the film goes.
Okay, all right, I like it.
So, and actually, Mark, I know you were mentioning that you had a presentation you had done earlier today. I wonder if you can just give us a little glimpse of that, and then I'll bring Nate back in after that. But could you share a little bit about what you were telling me before the show?
Well, this afternoon I was invited through the another network, and they wanted me to speak about the state of presence, or the present moment. So I gave a conference on how we are right now, who we are right now. We're not present with the actions we're doing. And a lot of people, you know, especially when they're working or they have some stuff and they're not present in the actions doing. So what I was teaching this afternoon was really about the awareness of being present in the actions you're doing. So in the state of presence, meaning you're there or you're not there. There's a choice. And what I was going through this afternoon was that it's all a choice. It's everything becomes a choice. If you want to be in that state of presence of being a choice, so being aware of who you are, and when you are aware of who you are, well, that resonates with other people. And that resonates with other people. That's where you bring people into your network. That's where you bring a business into your company. That's where everything starts. Everything in this world starts with you. And when you are so well connected with yourself, well, then that's where everything starts. And that's what I gave my little 20-minute spiel on how to be in that state of presence, really.
And how important that is. I mean, how much do we spend time, what even when we're just in a conversation with another person and our mind is already thinking about something else while that person's talking. And yeah, actually being present and being in the moment, what a difference that makes. And
what's really interesting is that when you have kids and you're being in the present, in the state of presence with your kids, you start listening to them. You see them in a different light. You're being part of that conversation instead of being into the programs and conditionings about being a parent, a mom, a dad, an uncle, a grandfather. When you are present in all the actions you're doing with your kids, it's amazing the reactions that they have. Amazing. And when you do that, well, then that conversation, even if it's a 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 10-year-old, that conversation is completely different now.
I like that. Yeah, sometimes it is. What is it that you are, where you put your attention is where, sometimes even that expectation of where do you think this conversation is going to go versus where it's actually going. You're predetermined. Yeah.
So what happens in the brain is that this is part of my research. I did 5 years of research on neuroscience and quantum physics. Is that when you put an action in your brain, you're using the brain through your programs and conditioning. So when you're talking, like I'm talking to you, Sue, is that now I'm present. I'm here with you. But before, what I was doing in my conditionings and programs, I was looking. When you were talking, I had a film that I was playing in my head, and playing that film, saying, "Okay, I'm going to give you this answer and this answer," and not be present, but I'm more in my head. So what happens now is that I'm with you 100%. So whatever you are saying in that moment, that is the only thing that belongs to me, is that conversation.
Excellent. And I can, you're hitting home with me, because even as being on the show like this, I'm trying to think ahead to the next thing. And you're right, though, being present and just staying in where we are at this moment in this conversation, it's a different way to think about it. And it's a totally different approach. And I feel much calmer actually when I'm just focused here and now.
Because Sue, that if you're thinking about other things, well, then you're putting actions into things that don't belong to you yet. They haven't happened. See, when you're thinking about it, and as well as you're thinking from the past, well, oh, this happened to me before, well, I'm going to be careful and but you're not present. So that's the machine, and that's the quantum energy that's there, because that's, everybody's got this quantum energy inside them. It's Einstein used to call this the spooky stuff, where the way that we talk, the tone of voice, how we are present. Can I give you an example about being, there's a nice research that Dr. Emoto did with it's called the Rice test. And I don't know if I told you I didn't tell you the story the last time. No. Well, the Rice test is that he made a big pot of rice. He cooked his rice, white rice, in water. He cooked it and he put it in 3 different containers. The first container, when he would he would speak to the rice, meaning the energy that he would resonate with that rice, saying, "Oh, it's nice to see you today. You're beautiful." All these positive ways of, he wanted to test the energy behind it. So for 30 days, he would talk to the rice this way. And the second container, he would do a lot of negative things through your programs and conditioning, saying you're not good enough, you're this and that, you don't make money, all these things that we play in our mind. And then the third one, he wouldn't even talk to. So after 30 days, what happens is that the rice in the first container where he was positive, he was in the presence talking to that rice, stayed white after 30 days. And the rice that he would talk to negatively, not being in that state, it turned brown and black. So what it's teaching us is that everything that we do has an energy attached to it. So imagine the impact of what if you're not in the state of presence, what is the impact you're giving to your customers? Or what's the impact you're giving to your loved ones? And all this has that impact on you. So if you're in a place where, you know, you're putting negative, your mind, you're playing a film in your mind, and that film has an energy attached to it. So it's beautiful. And for everybody that's listening, go on the website, on the internet, and just write the rice test, and you'll see a lot of videos done with it. And it's amazing to see it, because it's nice to do this with kids at school, and you teach the kids, and then you talk to them in a certain way, and then they have a reaction to it. Some are doing it with fruit as well. So when you do the same thing, you'll take a look on the internet. It's beautiful, beautiful research that Dr. Yamato, he does a lot of research on water and what the reaction the water waves are and all this stuff. It's beautiful.
Oh, I love that. I'm looking forward to learning more about that as well, because the whole concept to me is so intriguing. And actually, Nate, I want to bring you back into the conversation here. I wonder if you had any thoughts with what Mark was talking about, but also I know that you make such a difference with organizations. I'm wondering if you can bring your background into this as well, of where you go with things and how you're helping and making a difference out there. I just wanted to give you an opportunity here, though, if you had any thoughts for Mark as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it just reminds me, I had a mentor who would always ask me, are you listening? Are you listening? Even when you're talking, are you listening? And the whole idea was, are you in a listening mode? And whether it's spiritual or it's conversational, if you're in a listening mode, then you have the ability to receive. And if you have the ability to receive, that says you are, and I don't know if this is the right term for you, Mark, that's the whole mindfulness, right?
Yeah.
So if I am aware and I'm mindful and I'm in the moment, I'm not thinking of the next thing I'm going to say. I'm actually listening to the words that you're saying. I'm watching your face, and I'm listening to your body. I'm listening to all of the communication that your entire presence gives me. So in that sense, it crosses all elements of your life, right? So as Mark was saying, with your customers or with your kids, it's all very, very important stuff to be present and to be mindful of what it is that's happening in your exchange, and then with that person and what that person's trying to give you. So in my communications, a lot of times with Kurt and I were talking a little bit earlier today about just kind of the frozen position that when you start talking about technical things in a business, a lot of times, particularly in nonprofits and places of worship, even the organizational leaders kind of get frozen, right? Because they have, as Mark would call it, a film playing in their head as to what happened the last time that someone asked me a technical question or asked me to produce documents or whatever it might be. So I'm sensitive to that. I've been on whatever boards and served in various capacities, particularly in churches, and so having a business background is obviously different than the seminary backgrounds and things like that I would run into. So I needed to be sensitive to that and not assume that my lexicon was going to be their lexicon, and listen and be sensitive to what they needed and how to interpret or translate business language or technical language into something that was going to be relative and help generate a response from them that's going to be positive and help them move down the road that they want to move. If you said, do you want to get to this goal? And you say, and the answer is yes. And then you say, well, here are the steps that you have to take. And then someone freezes up. It's like you have to walk this tightrope. You have to, walk the broken bridge. And and so I just see my job as really just saying, look, I'll come alongside you and just step where I step, or I'll take the steps. And in some cases, I'll carry you, but we'll help you get to your goal. So that would be my kind of expansion or application of what Mark is saying. It's just, whether you're in nature by yourself, just the whole idea of experiencing is being in listening mode.
Excellent. Well, and can you tell us a little bit more what you are able to do for organizations? Because my understanding, Kurt was giving me a little sneak peek, but I'd love to hear directly from you what it is that you're able to do for groups that you would work with.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of different things that are kind of our the two primary arrows in our quiver, but a lot of times that'll end up getting expanded. I'll give you an example of that. There is a program for all businesses, all entities that had W-2 employees during the COVID years. And excuse me, so there's money that was in their bank account yesterday and now is sitting at the IRS. And the IRS has said, there are some rules and ways that you can qualify to get this money back into your bank account. And so people that are thinking about, government handouts and all that stuff, this was your money. So all we're trying to do is kind of dot the I's, cross the T's, so that whatever the events that happened within your organization and how you were impacted by COVID, that gets documented properly. We substantiate the reason that the IRS needs to send the money back to you, and then we help calculate all that. And again, because people are fearful, we went, so I started out trying to outsource this. And I had a client who said, well, can you take a look at this for me? And he had a couple of employees. And so it was the first time I really heard of it. So I explored it and ended up finding out in the marketplace that we just didn't like the service that was out there. And so we created our own platform and put all the things in it that we would want to have as a customer. So things like I'm dealing with taxes. So if there's a problem, who's going to help me solve that problem? If the IRS gives me a call, are you going to be there with me? So our organization will be there. We use licensed CPAs. We don't use the programs and a lot of stuff that other people do. So they go through, file by file. And we wanted to make sure that, there was a quality control inside, so that by the time we're actually presenting something to our client, that we're very comfortable, because again, we don't want to be standing before the IRS either. And we want to have our client feel very comfortable that everything is solid and we're convinced that these are the right numbers. So we wanted to allay that fear. We wanted to really just take as much of that tightrope or broken bridge walk out of the equation as possible, and do just kind of a white glove service, so that we would do all the packaging and everything else, and they would just have to provide us things that somebody in their organization or somebody close to their organization is doing on a regular basis. There's regular reporting that you do on payroll. There's regular reporting that you do on your revenues and those sort of things. So we just want to take that raw information, package it up right, have the bean counters do the bean counting properly, and then come back and say, let's submit this. And so we put that platform together, and then who are you going to serve? And so that's what I was looking for in terms of the nonprofit and the places of worship market. So my home church, we were able to get them some capital. There's you were talking about abilities, disabilities. One of the groups I'm very close to and that I've supported over the years is a group that serves people that have substance abuse history. And so this is a residential program for men and women. And so they were able to, get their chunk of change back into their coffers so they could serve more people. And so it's all about, having those dollars come in and being a catalyst for life change. And so there's a women's program that they're emerging from a violence against women, abused women situation. And so instead of just having money come in and go instantly into programming, we made a presentation to their board. Their board actually happened to have an attorney there who did estate planning, and I've done a little bit of that in the past. So we talked it through and said, why don't we create something that could be a perpetual asset for you? And so if we, instead of putting that, spending it essentially into programming, let's use it as a basis for corporate donors and other people who can't be the first dollars in, but they can match dollars. And so that's now grown substantially since they got their money, and they'll be able to take off the top now and have that be a perpetual funding source. So just stuff like that once you get in and once you listen and you can understand a little bit more about their story, their needs, their audience, their constituents, and how those things can be leveraged. I mean, some of it's just kind of in and out, and we just help them get the money, and they already know what they're doing and they're sailing. But it's enriching, I'll say, to be able to help with some of the ideas and some of the orchestration of the programming. So.
Oh, that's amazing, because that's one of those pieces that often with organizations, they have their passion for whatever they're doing, and the whole finance end of things is not necessarily an equal passion that they have, or there's so many things to know.
Right.
Oh yeah, exactly. You need the funds
evil.
to be able to do your mission, but knowing how to go about that and to take best advantage of what's available, that's where people need someone like you who does know all those pieces and can come in and make that difference.
Well, and sometimes, not only within the organization, the operators of the organization, but even the board can get into a rut because they've been preconditioned. This is what we've done. We've always cut the ham in half. Never mind that grandma had to do that because her oven was too small. So to help them maybe think outside the box a little bit, or maybe knock down one of the walls of the box and say, here's a different way to go. And that even comes into, because if I've heard someone who I believed to be credible say, well, you don't qualify for this because, and it turns out there's 7 different ways to qualify for this money, but really only one of them is really, really well known, and that's, did you lose money? But we've been able to get money for people that haven't lost money. And that's because the IRS, again, lays out the metrics. And so we look at every element of the metrics, and they're all additive. So if we can add them all up, even if you didn't lose money, you don't get that piece of it, but you get these other pieces. And so sometimes it's just a change of mind, literally. Mark would know what a change of mind, you don't just change your mind, it's a change of mind.
Yeah.
All right. So if you can come in with a fresh, or just do some sort of an interrupt to their chain of thought so that they can be open to something new and the possibilities of that. And then you can substantiate it. Obviously, you don't want to just be talking out of the side of your neck, but if you can substantiate it, then everybody wins.
Awesome. Well, Mark, I want to bring you back in too to see if you had any thoughts, or if this has triggered any particular thoughts for you.
Well, it's interesting because what I learned today from Nate is that I had the understanding that it was a government grant that you were able to get after. But what he would explain is that it's already money that you gave to the IRS. So it's your money.
Right.
It's just to apply what you went through on during the pandemic. There's some criteria that you can get your money back because of the situation you went through, which is amazing what you're doing. And the second thing that you came out with, and I'm seeing this in corporate as well, is that their mindset is they're really fixed in a certain way. They're thinking, doing the same thing day out, the same film they're playing in their mind. And it's hard for people like you to go in and say, hey, there's something different here. You can do something different. And what I do with corporate is that I do it from the top up and then bring it down. If the top is not changed, the other stuff won't change either, because it's all culture. It's all the way that people, if they see that the boss or the CIO or the president of the company is in that state of presence, all the other stuff is going to come into that state of presence, because we learn from what's up from the ladder going up. So if it's trickling down and that's what you're doing as well, Nate, is that when you change the things, everything else changes in that line as well. So it's beautiful, 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 beautiful.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and culturally, it's very important for an open mind and just being open to the possibilities, but an open mind to kind of drive the process.
Yeah.
And you can see that, in a lot of cases, you can walk in and just see how the assistant who's helping you get into the conference room is treated, and then you kind of have a sense of how the whole thing is going to go. But we're working with a group here in Cincinnati that they help adults who are not quite capable to live independently, but are more capable than having to be in a completely structured and supervised home. And so that's been an interesting education for me. And they've got the whole spectrum in terms of abilities. So it's been very interesting, and to be able to help those folks, and from a mindset, they're kind of locked on protecting the castle, and I understand that, but I evidently said a couple of things that opened a few doors in the back, some pockets in the mind or whatever. So we've been able to move the conversation along, and I think we're going to be able to get them a substantial amount of money.
That'll be such a relief on so many levels.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting in the church world. There's a pastor that I've known for a long time. He was a mentor of mine for quite a while, and I asked him how the large churches, because he's always been in these kind of mega church settings, how are they looking at this whole program? And he said several of them view it, like you were saying, Mark, is almost like it, and not that you were saying it like in a negative way, but a lot of them are viewing it as this largesse from the government that's just being handed out. And so, I asked him, I said, well, so not even asking you what you think, if I were to say, where is a dollar going to do the most good? Is it going to do the most good sitting in the IRS coffers and being spent on whatever they decide? Or is it going to be do best for society to go back into the church's coffers? Even if they plant another church, give it to another church, give it to a charity themselves. Where is that going to be best deployed?
And that's a perfect final thought here for us here. I'm so grateful, Nate and Mark, that you were here to join us tonight with AbilityMKE Now. And for that, we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.